Welcome everybody to episode 1 of our AI in e-mobility series. This is a limited edition, a mini-series of 10 episodes that go live on YouTube and all the common podcast platforms like Spotify. I designed this series to understand what's going on in the world of artificial intelligence in the e-mobility sector. Of course, with a strong focus on batteries and the EV ecosystem. And honestly, I was really surprised by how much is already happening in this space. We'll learn how AI is used to come up with new battery chemistries and designs. We'll explore how AI is advancing battery recycling, plus everything in between. We'll talk to 8 industry experts from established companies and startups that have AI products across different areas. But before we get into specific technical applications, I wanted to start with a foundational episode to discuss the general concept of AI and how it impacts our lives on different levels. And to help me with this, I am super humbled and excited to have Paul Roetzer with me today. Paul is founder of the Marketing AI Institute, an event and online education company in the AI space. And then also a company called SmarterX, which is more on the research and consulting side of things, as far as I understand. So with Paul being at the forefront of helping businesses integrate AI into their operations for quite some time, I really could not have asked for a better guest to kick things off. So Paul, thank you so much for being here.
I'm honored to be part of it. I'm looking forward to the series. I'm excited for it. I've been a Tesla owner for 7 years. So I've been following space to a degree and trying to understand there, but I'm investing in this kind of technology. So I'm really excited to learn more about it as well.
Yes. And I think historically, you are very much focused on marketing and you reach lots of marketing professionals across different industries. I, with my own brand, Electrified, Veronika, of course, I work partly in marketing, but then also on the technical consulting things. And even after doing like several courses and trainings and stuff, I really have to say that you're still my number one source of trusted content around AI in general. I think you make it so approachable. You really help explain what's happening in the industry, why certain things are relevant, and you make it very easy for listeners like me to understand what it means for me and my business. I also took your piloting AI online course and I listen to your podcast almost every week.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, we definitely so I always say we take a storytelling approach to AI. That's my background is in journalism. And so we're not trying to make it overly technical. It's all about trying to help people wherever they're at, whether they're a podcaster, a CEO, a consultant, an accountant, a lawyer, it doesn't matter. We're just trying to help people understand the foundational information so they can apply it to their domain.
How did you initially get into AI? When was that? And can you give us a rundown on what happened since then and where you're at today with AI and your companies?
Yeah, so it started just out of curiosity. So I owned a marketing agency. In 2005, I started my agency. We became HubSpot's first partner. So HubSpot, a big CRM company. Back in the day, it was not a big company. We started working with them when there was maybe 50 employees. And so that was sort of the basis for building my agency. But I was building it at a really interesting time. We had YouTube in 2005, I think, kind of became publicly available. Facebook was around that time, Twitter, 2007, the iPhone, 2007, things started changing. We had mobile, we had social, we had consumer generated content. So marketing was a really interesting place to be at that time. And so we were always trying to evolve, and then working so closely with HubSpot, we were sort of at the forefront of the marketing technology space. And then the AI stuff just kind of came serendipitously. I watched IBM Watson win on Jeopardy in 2011. And I tried to go figure out what exactly is that technology. And my initial use for it was clients would come to us from all kinds of different industries: manufacturing, healthcare, software, legal, consulting, home services. And they all had goals, and they all wanted to know how much they should spend and where should they spend it, what strategies should they use. And so when I saw IBM Watson, I thought, I wonder if that technology could help me figure out how to build smarter strategies. And so that led me down a path of trying to understand the technology. And there wasn't much to go on back in those days. The only people writing about AI were AI people. And so I read a book, though, in 2012 called Automate This by Christopher Steiner. And he told the story of intelligent algorithms being applied in different industries to basically build smarter companies. And that became my driving force. I looked at it and said, okay, this is going to come to marketing and sales and service eventually. And so I just started researching and reading everything I could about artificial intelligence. And then my second book in 2014, I wrote a little bit. There was like 1,000 words out of a 50,000 word manuscript about my theories of AI being applied to marketing. That led to the creation of Marketing AI Institute in 2016. AI started kind of picking up steam in 2017, 18 after Google Brain invented the transformer, which became the basis for generative pre-trained transformers, GPTs. And then I launched the AI conference in 2019, sold my agency in 2021 to focus solely on AI. And then ChatGPT showed up in 2022 and changed everything. It created demand everywhere. And so I wasn't just talking to marketers anymore. I mean, we had 60,000 subscribers to the AI Institute, but I was doing public speaking to CEOs. I was meeting with law firm partners. I was meeting with healthcare leaders. Like everyone all of a sudden was trying to understand AI. And so that's where the SmarterX brand came from, is what's the story of AI beyond marketing? Because I'm already doing the public speaking and advisory work and things like that. And so we just needed a brand that was a place for those people to go who aren't marketers, but needed AI guidance. And so that's the kind of brand we're building with SmarterX.
I love that. Super inspiring story. To kick things off, how are you personally using AI, like in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, I use ChatGPT all the time. I mean, that's probably my number one go-to. I use Perplexity a ton. It has in many ways replaced Google search for me. I still use Google search, but I would say Perplexity is probably 80 to 90% of the things I would have used Google search for, I now use Perplexity for. Those are the two dominant ones. And then I use Anthropic Claude. I use Google Gemini. I play around with a lot of other tools. Notebook LM from Google is one of my new favorites. It just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's incredible if you haven't tried it yet. So those are for me personally. And what I do is I look at, as a CEO and kind of like a chief strategist for my companies, I really look at ChatGPT as a strategy assistant. And I have conversations with it all the time related to strategy and ideation. And so I don't use it to write. Like, I'm a writer by trade. I love the process of writing. So when I write stuff for LinkedIn or our newsletters, that's 100% me. Like, I may use AI to help me with like outlines or develop some concepts, but I like the process of writing. And so I don't use it for writing. So yeah, I would say as a strategy assistant more than anything.
Now, artificial intelligence is a very general and wide term, and I just would like to talk a little bit about the basics first. So since it's so hyped at the moment, I really want to figure out, hey, how can it really be applied? And so first question for you is, what does artificial intelligence mean to you? What is it? What is it not?
Yeah, so I struggled for years with a definition. So when I started paying attention in 2011, the definitions were very technical and scientific. They would not make sense to the average knowledge worker, the average, marketer or business leader. So around, I don't know, like 2015, 16, I came across a definition. AI is the science of making machines smart. And that's from Demis Hassabis, who's the co-founder and CEO of Google DeepMind. It was in a Rolling Stone article of all places. And what it means is, if you think about the software that we have all used to do our jobs throughout our careers, that software was coded to do specific things, and then you would tell it to do things and it would do them. It couldn't think on its own. It didn't have reasoning capability. It didn't understand what you were asking of it. It just followed rules, and it couldn't create anything. It couldn't write text. It couldn't write emails for you without you giving it the words. Couldn't generate images, couldn't generate videos, code, audio, none of that. So the software we had up until 2022 wasn't intelligent. And so AI is the science of building things that gives that intelligence to the machines or the software. That's like the simplest way to think about it, is now the software is getting smarter every day. And so that's at a high level what it is. Now, before 2022, we had artificial intelligence. It's a field of study since the 1950s. So we've had 70 years of artificial intelligence. Most uses of it prior to 2022 was all using what's called machine learning, where the software learns from data. And so this was useful in pricing optimization, building recommendation engines, making predictions and forecasts. So, for example, Netflix, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, they're all predictive engines. They all predict what you're going to watch next, what you're going to listen to, what you're going to buy. That was AI, but it was just making predictions about outcomes and behaviors. Generative AI took us into the phase where it could actually think and create.
Yes, I love that. And so I have a very technical audience, and I try to really figure out for myself and for this series kind of a hierarchy of AI, like thinking about what is an algorithm, what's artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, how does it all go together? I created something which probably is wrong in tomorrow, but it's a start. But so coming back to what you just described, is there anything that you can add to kind of figuring out what is what, and then also what is really the generative part, generative AI? I also kind of learned not every AI is data-driven, not every AI is generative. So what's your take on all that?
Definitions? So I think of AI as like an umbrella term for the tools and technologies that make machines smart. Now, the classical definition, the classic AI researchers may not agree, but they sort of lost control of the definition in the last 10 years. And so what happened is Google, Microsoft, now we have Apple, IBM finally came around to it and started calling it AI. They used to call it cognitive computing. So everyone just sort of made AI the catch-all phrase for these tools and technologies that were building intelligence. So AI is, in essence, like an umbrella term for all of these things. Machine learning is the primary subset. So even within generative AI, machine learning is still a core thing. It's basically predictions. And what generative AI is predicting the next token or word from a language perspective. It's just making a prediction about what comes next. So AI is the umbrella term. Machine learning is the primary subset. Underneath that is deep learning. Deep learning is trying to give the machine the ability to think and create like a human does. It literally comes from neural nets, neural networks, which is inspired by how the neurons in the brain work. And so we had these ideas of these neural layers that would be created to do things like image recognition and generation. And that's what deep learning is. So deep learning, the term was coined somewhere around like 2008, 2009 by Jeff Hinton, who led the team that did a breakthrough called AlexNet in 2012, which was image recognition. And that's actually what set off this entire deep learning movement that we've now had the last 13 years.
Yeah. And now I guess the last term that I want to bring into this conversation is artificial superintelligence.
Yeah.
What is this? And is this where we're headed?
Yeah, so the next phase is artificial general intelligence. So what we have had historically is artificial narrow intelligence. So we had AI that could do specific things. It wasn't generally capable of learning many things, many cognitive tasks. So if you think of a human, even the smallest humans, take a 2-year-old, they learn to talk, they learn to play games, they learn to climb stairs, they learn to do all these things. They're generally capable of learning all of those cognitive tasks very quickly. That's not how AI works. It needs tons of examples, lots of data. It's hard to teach it all these things. And so AI historically was trained to do specific things like Grammarly, trained to edit your writing. So it's really, really good, better than like 90% of humans at editing, but that's it. Grammarly can't also go and win at a game of chess. So general knowledge is the ability to do many cognitive tasks well. So what all the research labs are working toward right now is building AGI, or artificial general intelligence. They're trying to build models that can generally do many cognitive tasks that a human would do. Once we get past that, then we get into superintelligence. Superintelligence is better than 99% of humans at all cognitive tasks. So imagine GPT-7 or 8, like 3 iterations from where we are today, and it can do any cognitive task better than the best human. It can be the best lawyer, it can be the best marketer, it can be the best CEO, it can be the best accountant. A single model that can do all of those things. That's superintelligence. That's where things just get weird in society.
Oh, thank you. I love
Yeah.
that analogy also to the toddler. I have one at home.
Yeah. And
It's incredible how
you see
she
how
learns.
fast they learn and how
Yes,
it's like, show them one example and they get it. Like they'll never forget how to do that.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now we have covered a little bit of the basics,
Yep.
and now I want to move over to applying
Okay.
AIs. And since you are working with so many different people and professionals in so many different industries, I think it's really exciting to get some insights from you. So let's first start with the individual. So I'm kind of looking individual, organization, industry.
Okay.
So how are people using and applying AI as individuals? Just a couple examples to start with.
Yeah, the way we teach this, so at what we call a use case model, is to look at your own job and break it into a series of tasks. So each of us could take our job and say, these are the 20 tasks I do every week or every month. That's one way. And then you find AI to assist you in doing those things. So if there's strategic planning, writing, developing emails, creating articles, building proposals, analyzing data, like whatever it is you do, you look at it and say, okay, could AI assist me in doing this? Could I use ChatGPT to do 20% of this work? So that's the most common way to adopt AI is to find those use cases that are specific to your job. The other way we teach it is within the use case model is a campaign-based approach, which is what are the campaigns, the series of tasks you do regularly that you could apply to. So for example, producing a podcast. To prepare for, produce, and promote a podcast, at least in our case, we do it every week, there's like 25 tasks each week that we do. So we look at that and say, where can AI fit in? And we use AI in about half of those tasks, and it saves us probably 15 to 20 hours a week just using AI to help produce and promote our podcast. And so regardless of your industry, you can follow the same principles. What do you do? What are the tasks you do in your job? What are the campaigns you do repetitively where you could infuse AI into different tasks? So don't think about job replacement or it doing the whole campaign. Think about it at a task level, assisting you at different degrees to do those things.
Yeah, I love that. That's really a great starting point. And I'm using your use case model at the moment too.
Nice.
For my own work. Let's talk a little bit about the tools though.
Yeah.
Because before I took your class, I really wasn't aware that there's thousands of
Yes.
AI tools out there today, and I think most people are not. There's so much more than just ChatGPT, Claude, and all those very, very common tools. What can you recommend people how to get started and how to use those tools? And I think also many people try out ChatGPT in a way they prompt something, they get something back, and then they're amazed and fascinated, but then that's pretty much it. But what's the next steps?
Yeah, so the tools, again, is going to be specific to your role. So ChatGPT is built to be generally capable of many things. So it is an early form of AGI, if you would think about it that way. It's sort of on a path to becoming truly, general intelligence. But it's capable of doing all kinds of things. And so you can start to look at tools like that and find ways to infuse it into what you already do. Or you can go like industry or company specific. So for example, as podcasters, as people who run webinars and online courses, we use a tool called Descript. It's just descript.com. And it is what we use to do all the production of our podcast. And so it improves the audio quality, creates the transcript, does speaker recognition. We can use it to cut video shorts for TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. Like all of these things that would have taken dozens of hours for a human to do, we do it with the click of a button or typing words into Descript. So there's tools like that for us is specific to our domain. And the key is just finding those tasks in your campaigns or your job, and then go search AI for X, with X being the task that you want to find out if anything can automate it. So like, for example, there's AIs being built in specific domains like legal, like Harvey comes to mind. It's a company that's building and tuning models specifically for the legal industry. You're going to see this all over the place, financial services, manufacturing, automotives, like everything. Everybody's going to build kind of these custom trained versions of these models that are specifically trained on data from different industries.
And then do you see certain roles in an organization affected more by everything that's going on with AI? I know you're kind of trying to explain it coming from the tasks perspective, but marketing, HR, engineering? Like, what roles are you seeing being affected most, and why?
Yeah, so we're under a working assumption that 80% of all knowledge work will be AI assisted to some degree in the next 1 to 2 years. Now, I'll unpack that for a second. So in the United States, as an example, there's 136 million full-time jobs. Roughly 100 million of those are knowledge workers, people who think and create for a living. That can be accountants, lawyers, doctors, marketers, journalists. We all create things, and we write, and we rationalize and use reasoning, and that's knowledge work. So every industry is going to be affected because all the software you use, whether you're in Microsoft Copilots or Google Workspace or Salesforce, or like whatever tools you use, these main platforms, all of those big tech companies are building AI into everything already. Now, which career paths are most what I would call exposed to these models, like being disrupted? The one that keeps coming up over and over again is customer service. So regardless of your industry, we all have customer service. Sales is going to be impacted, like business development reps, things like that. You're going to start to see it. But I think it's going to be, some industries are just going to move slowly, like healthcare, legal. They're going to move slowly because it's really disruptive. And in some cases, there's a lot of regulations in the way of applying the technology. So I think the industries like retail, e-commerce, software, where they don't have as many regulations a lot of times, they're going to move more quickly to adopt, and it's going to be kind of universal regardless of your role. They're going to find ways to infuse this. But when we think just bigger picture about jobs, customer service is often the one that sort of rises to the top as the one that's already being sort of impacted.
Yes, I agree. And then since you already started talking about the different industries, what industries do you see at the forefront and who's lacking behind? And then since all this is kind of in the e-mobility space, and I don't know how much insight you have, but what about the automotive industry?
Yeah, so I think one of the ways before ChatGPT that I would try and identify which industries and companies were most likely to adopt AI at a high level, I would actually go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator and I would see how many AI and machine learning employees different companies had. So to me, it was an indicator that they were forward thinking. And so back in the day, as an example, like 2019, 2020, Target, a superstore, they had like 400 machine learning engineers. Well, obviously they were doing something. It was probably around pricing optimization, personalization of offers, things like that. Logistics, supply chain, like they were infusing it into everything. And so you probably would see the same thing in automotive. Even back then, you could go look at the automotive manufacturers and see how many machine learning engineers did they have. That litmus test doesn't work as well now because obviously it doesn't have to be just machine learning engineers anymore. But what I always looked for was the companies who had a lot of engineers, who had a lot of data. So again, look at like a retail and e-commerce. So they had a lot of data that would allow for like personalization and predictive modeling. Those were the companies in the teens, like 2010 to 2020, that were aggressively pursuing machine learning. They were making, doing this for all those predictions and personalizations. Now it starts to get into more where you look at the companies where there's a lot of creation of content is like a real key. So media publishing, like I think about those kinds of companies, and a lot of consumer interaction. So like you could think in the automotive industry about AI within the cars themselves. So you could certainly think about it in terms of supply chain, building more intelligent, more powerful batteries. Like I just saw something this morning that Google announced something called Alpha Chip. They're using AI to design their chips. And they think that there's, in a near future, the AI will do the entire chip design process. So if you think about battery design, if you think about car development, we're moving toward a future where the AI is going to function as an engineer. It's going to find ways to design batteries or work with the engineers to design batteries that might unlock entirely new ways of doing these things. And my guess is that's already probably happening. Like there's some very innovative automotive companies who are likely working at the frontiers. We're just not hearing about it yet.
Yes, but we will in the
Oh
next
yeah.
episode, actually. So I was
Awesome. I can't
absolutely
wait.
fascinated. There is a company called Chemix. I'm just teasing this a little bit. And they're really, like you say, they're revolutionizing the way that we develop batteries. It's
Yeah.
completely different from the traditional way. It's unbelievable. What I loved when taking your class and also listening to you in your podcast is the comparison that you had between the different levels of AI and marketers
Hmm.
to the SAE levels of ADAS.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Like, how did you come up with this?
Yeah, so that was the inspiration, was like the autonomous vehicle industry was always a fascination for me. It's why I bought a Tesla back in, I don't know, I got my first one like 2016 or something. Like I wanted to follow along in the development of autonomous vehicles and see where it truly was. And so I always took inspiration from how they rated it. And their thing, that the key unlock is, what does the driver do? And so what I always wanted was a simplified way of explaining that to people of what AI was going to be capable of. And for me, it was, what does the human do in the equation? And so, in their levels, once you get to the higher levels, the human is still in the loop, but is required less and less for oversight, and to the point where you just don't need a steering wheel. And that's, I think, level 5 in their world. And so that was my motivation to try and come up with a system. So in our world, level 0 is like, it's all the human. There's no AI in the software. Level 1 is mostly human. That's where, the human's still doing the dominant amount of the work. The AI is there to assist maybe 10% of the task. And I think about it as a task level. I'm not thinking like whole jobs per se. And then level 2 is half human, half machine. Level 3 is mostly machine. And then level 4 in our world is all machine. And that is, I want you to achieve this goal, go do it. And then it can go and take 10, 20, 50, 100 steps, go through a chain of thought, use reasoning, and it can actually execute with no human oversight other than the goal that was given to it. And so that's the premise. And it's helpful to visualize for people that, like, we're mostly at level 1 or 2. Like the AI, depending on what you're using it for, what task you're using it for, it's just there to assist you and kind of unlock what you're capable of doing. We don't have level 4 yet. We don't have give it a goal, it goes and does the thing. And we probably won't for a couple of years in most cases. But level 3, where maybe it's 75% the AI, that's happening in customer service. It's happening in coding. It's probably happening in forms of engineering that maybe we're privy to, maybe we're not. So it's rapidly changing, and it's rapidly kind of moving up the scale, again, at a task level. We don't have ChatGPT that can just do everything at level 3. That's not what we're talking about here.
Yes, I love that angle. And I think you're the only one that kind of made that comparison. I
It
think
took
it's
me
really
years to come up with a way to actually like visualize that. And then I was writing the book and I was like, I have to figure out a way to do this now.
yes. Yeah. So there is a lot of potential for AI,
Yeah.
and over the course of the miniseries and the next weeks, I will talk to several companies about how they use AI mostly in their products, like I mentioned, new battery chemistries and design, smarter energy management systems, predictive maintenance, battery health monitoring, like even in the EV charging and recycling. It will be very exciting. So we'll learn that there is already lots of potential and opportunities, but what, like, coming from maybe the challenges perspective,
Yeah.
what does it really mean for us as a society to use and apply AI in our day-to-day and our professions? And where are like the challenges?
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, the challenges to adoption also a lot of times comes around just literacy, just understanding of the topic. So many organizations struggle to even comprehend what it is and what it's capable of doing. So they don't really adopt it. There's responsible and ethical considerations. It's very powerful technology, can be very disruptive. It's trained on data that likely was illegally taken. Copyrighted materials were used to train these models. It'll take a decade for that stuff to work it through the legal systems. And so there's those kinds of issues. But I think the biggest thing for me at a broad level is it's going to change consumer behavior. It's going to disrupt the workforce. It's going to kind of redefine what the future of work is. And my concern is that's just not being talked about enough. And that, I mean, I've talked to some of the leading economists in the world, and my general feeling, and this goes back to like fall of last year, is they were starting to like think about it, but they didn't have a plan. There was no 2 years out from now, if AI is capable of doing these different things, that here's what we're going to do about it. And so there's just a lack of urgency, I think, at the government level, at the leading economist level, at education levels, like leaders of institutions, to move quickly to solve this. I think there's now a lot of curiosity, but I wouldn't say there's urgency. That's a broad statement, but like generally speaking, there isn't enough urgency, I don't think. And I just think way more needs to be done to prepare society for how dramatic these changes are going to be.
Yes, and I like it how transparent you are with this, and also listening to your podcast. Sometimes there is those moments where you're super excited, but at the same time scared.
Yeah.
And you just voice that.
That's every day. It's just depending on when you get me, or what I'm thinking about at the moment. I can go either direction with fear or excitement. It's usually both at the same time.
But what is the best practice? What can organizations do to do the right thing? How to get started? How do you safely start using and implementing AI?
Yeah, so we teach for companies, and even, I mean, just the other day I was speaking to higher education leaders and teach the same process to all of them. It starts with literacy. You have to democratize this knowledge. We can't have a few select people in an organization who understand AI and are planning around it, because everybody else is worried about it. And if you're not involving them in the process, you're just creating more fear unnecessarily. So education is critical. We think about building AI councils is something we've seen a lot of uptake in that works really well, is get a group of curious and passionate people together to work on this and figure it out for the organization and engage different stakeholders in an organization. Then building responsible AI principles that guide sort of a human-centered approach to this, generative AI policies that provide some guardrails for people about what tools they're allowed to use, how they're allowed to use them, what data are they allowed to put into them. Impact assessments is another one. Nobody's doing this yet, but this idea of looking at the jobs, the roles in your company, and saying 1 to 2 years out, 1 to 2 models out from now, what is the impact on our people? What is the impact on our technology stack? What is the impact on our distribution? What is the impact on our partners? Really thinking deeply about 1 to 2 years from now, what this looks like, and then building an AI roadmap where you really prioritize use cases and the problems you're going to solve, and also innovations. Like, what are the opportunities to be innovative and create new revenue streams, new markets, new products?
Yes, and I think you emphasized that a lot in your podcast. I'm also right now building a new business where I want it to be somewhat AI first or whatsoever, but you made me aware of, in my planning, I don't only have to include what's going on today, I have to plan now what will be going on in the future, and only then can I be maybe successful. So,
well, you'll definitely have an advantage, because I just, not enough people are even thinking about that concept, more or less doing it.
Yes, and I guess it's easier to start from scratch and applying and integrating AI before you have a huge organization that already has their state-of-the-art way how to do things.
Big existing companies have advantages of, they have data, they have a customer base, they have distribution, they have people, but there's never been, in my opinion, a better time to be a startup, because you can build more intelligently from the ground up, be more efficient with your resources, more innovative, more creative. You don't have to worry about disruption to the workforce. You just hire smarter. So maybe you can build with fewer people.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great time to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, I agree. Well, let's use a couple more minutes to talk a little bit about the future of AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of funny because when we talk about the future, we're probably talking about the next weeks and months.
This week, it's like the next day. Yeah.
Yes, it's just so crazy. What are some of the things that you see happening in the near future with AI that you are specifically excited about?
So I don't know how excited, but like what's going to happen, the models are going to get smarter. They're going to become multimodal, as we would call them, meaning the models we've had largely up until now, you could put text in, you could type a text input, and then it would output text for you. So ChatGPT historically would do that. Now it can output images. It'll eventually be able to output videos, audio. All of these things are going to be built into the base model. So Google is doing this with Gemini. OpenAI is doing it with their next model. Meta is doing it with their Llama models. Anthropic is doing it. They're going to build all these modalities into the single model. And that's going to unlock a lot of interesting things. I'm very intrigued to see where the reasoning capabilities go. So one from OpenAI a couple weeks ago was the first reasoning agent that we've really seen in the world. There's going to be more in the near future. We'll have similar models from other companies. So I'm very intrigued to see how that evolves. And then as these AI agents that can take action start becoming more reliable, I'm very eager to try and understand the impact that that will actually have. And so I think we're going to start getting more tangible examples in the coming months, and we'll be able to start seeing around the corner a little bit more. And that's really what I spend my life right now doing, is trying to see around the corner of what's coming and what will it mean to us. And so I don't know how excited is the right term for that. It's curious for sure. I'm excited about scientific discovery. I think we're going to get into a phase where we're going to start hearing about things like, it's going to be every month at the beginning, and then it's going to start being like weekly, where you're just going to hear breakthroughs in technology and science that just wouldn't have happened before. And I'm very excited about that. I think a lot of good for humanity can come from the innovations that we're going to see in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we didn't touch on?
I think just at a high level, it's such an overwhelming topic. It can be very abstract if you haven't spent a lot of time on it. I think it's wonderful that you're starting your series with this kind of episode, because that foundational knowledge is so valuable for people to connect the dots about what's possible. And so I would just encourage people, just get started. Find a use case, find a podcast, find a book, just do something to take the next step to, increase your own understanding of the topic, your own competency with it, because there's such tremendous potential for individuals and companies to sort of reimagine what's possible.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your story, and basically helping me launch this mini-series.
Yeah, congrats on the launch. I'm excited for you. I can't wait to hear the rest.
I really couldn't have asked for a better guest. I truly appreciate you taking the time, especially with how busy you've been organizing the Mekong conference. That was, I think, 2 weeks ago, where you brought together thousands of future AI professionals and enthusiasts. And I think the program is still available online. I'll be sure to check it out. So yeah, once again, thank you. I'm excited to share the next episode where we'll dive into the first use case along the battery value chain. I'll be speaking to a startup called Chemix, like I mentioned already, on how they use AI to design new batteries and come up with new chemistries. They're essentially really completely revolutionizing the way we think about battery development and everything that I've done in the past. So yeah, and for everybody listening in, I just want to clarify again that this miniseries is by no means a complete reflection of everything that's going on in AI and e-mobility. It's meant to be a foundation, a starting point, and hopefully provides an overview, lots of inspiration to explore these topics even deeper. Thanks everybody, and see you next time. Bye.